All right, let's dive right into this explainer. Today, we're taking a look at a really fascinating story about why talking about our biggest goals often makes them so much harder to achieve. I know, it sounds completely counterintuitive, right? We are constantly told to just shout our goals from the rooftops, to manifest them by speaking them into existence, and, to build accountability by telling everyone exactly what we're up to. But what if doing that is exactly what's killing your momentum? Let's unpack the hidden mechanics of ambition, praise, and the really surprising power of just keeping your mouth shut. So think about this for a second. Have you ever told everyone about something huge you wanted to do, and then noticed what happened next? Did you suddenly lose all the energy to actually pursue it? Like you had this grand idea, you shared it with your friends, maybe you posted it online, you soaked up all the likes and the congratulations. And then when it came time to actually sit down and do the hard work, you just felt tired. The drive was literally gone. Well, if you've experienced this, you are definitely not alone. And actually, there is a very specific psychological reason for it. Section 1, The Trap of Speaking, Simon's Story. To really understand this phenomenon, we're going to look at a young man named Simon. Simon lived in a small village, and he was a guy with incredibly big dreams. He was always dreaming up the next big venture. But Simon had a very strange self-sabotaging habit. Before he even lifted a single finger to begin his work, he made absolutely sure every single person in the village knew about his plans. So picture this. One week, he'd decide to open a shop. He'd walk right through the market and literally shout, "I will open the biggest shop in this village." And the people would clap. They'd smile. They'd offer all these kind words of encouragement. Simon felt super proud and important. He would sleep wonderfully that night. But the next morning, when it was actually time to start working, the energy was just gone. Days would pass. No shop. So by week 2, he'd pivot. Now he was going to learn pottery. He'd gather the village square and loudly announce, "I will make the most beautiful pots. Everyone will buy from me." And again, praise, again, encouragement. But after a few days, he totally lost interest. He never even touched the clay. By week 3, it was building a house. And this frantic cycle just repeated over and over. So let's look at the actual fallout of this behavior. The consequences of all this speaking were pretty devastating for Simon. This pattern didn't just last a few weeks, it went on for years. He announced every single dream, and the village celebrated his words, but his hands stayed entirely empty. His life simply did not change. Deep inside, his heart grew heavy. He couldn't figure out why he always failed, and he felt deeply ashamed and just utterly stuck. He had all the praise in the world, but literally zero results. Section 2, Secret of the Seed, the Elder's Lesson. One evening, feeling totally defeated, Simon sat alone near the old village well. A quiet, humble village elder approached him. Now, this elder was highly respected, mostly because he rarely spoke. Seeing Simon looking troubled, the elder asked what was wrong, and Simon just poured his heart out, confessing his whole cycle of having these big ideas and never finishing them. When the elder asked what Simon did when he had a new idea, Simon admitted he immediately told everyone to make them proud. Well, the elder didn't lecture him. Instead, he told Simon to meet him in his garden the very next morning for a demonstration. The next day, the elder handed Simon a seed. He told him to dig a small hole, place the seed inside, and cover it up with dark soil. Simon did exactly as he was told. Then, the elder took a second, identical seed, but instead of planting it, he held it up high for all to see. He called over some kids playing nearby and announced, "Look, everyone, I have a seed. Soon it will become a beautiful tree." And the children clapped and smiled, exactly like the villagers did for Simon. The elder then took that second seed, placed it right on top of a bare rock, totally exposed to the elements, and just walked away. Over the next few weeks, the elder quietly watered that hidden seed under the soil without saying a single word about it to anyone. Slowly, a tiny green shoot appeared and grew stronger week after week. But what about the exposed seed? Well, it stayed exactly the same. It dried out in the harsh sun, passing birds chipped away at it, and it never grew. It perished completely. When Simon saw the small, strong plant that grew from the hidden seed, something inside him finally clicked. Section 3. Illusion of Success. Mind Tricks. The elder broke down exactly why the exposed seed died and how it directly mirrors Simon's failures. A seed needs silence and darkness to grow, right? It needs to stay hidden under the earth. Leaving it out in the open and talking about it just causes it to dry up. And the really crazy thing is, the human mind operates in a remarkably similar way. The elder shared this super powerful realization. He said, when you share your dreams too early,
Your mind thinks the goal is already achieved. This right here is the absolute crux of this whole explainer. When you announce a plan, you immediately feel proud. You feel as if you've already done the hard work. Other people's praise gives you this rush of pleasure, and your brain genuinely gets tricked. It actually registers that premature applause as actual completed success.
So this builds into a very predictable cycle, basically the exact anatomy of a failed goal. Step 1, you announce the plan. Step 2, you receive that early praise and validation from your peers. Step 3, you feel a rush of fake pride and success. Your brain releases all the dopamine it normally saves for when you actually finish a task. And then, step 4, because your heart feels satisfied, you totally lose the fire to act. That vital energy you needed for the gritty, unglamorous action, it gets entirely wasted in words. Simon realized he never needed to finish his projects because, emotionally speaking, he already felt finished before he even started. The elder left Simon with this really beautiful piece of advice. He said, dreams are fragile. At the beginning, they need protection. Keep them quiet. Let them grow in the dark soil of your effort. Because once the tree is strong enough, everyone's going to see it anyway. You really don't need to announce it. You just need to nurture it quietly. Section 4. The Power of Silence. Simon's New Strategy. Armed with this profound realization, Simon walked home with a completely new perspective. He decided to radically change his approach. He picked just one simple goal. He wanted to build a wooden chair. But this time, he was going to do the hardest thing in the world for him. He was going to keep his mouth shut. Simon's new strategy revolved entirely around the concept of zero. 0 people told, 0 announcements in the market square, 0 applause gathered beforehand. Every single evening after his daily chores, he just went to a quiet corner and worked with wood. Because 0 people knew, 0 people asked him questions, he had 0 external expectations and absolutely 0 pressure. It was just his hands, the wood, and his quiet effort. Some days he was exhausted, some days he was super excited, but he just kept working. When Simon finally finished that chair, he experienced a completely different sensation. He felt real pride. Before this, he only ever knew false pride. That fleeting, empty rush that comes from just saying words and getting unearned praise. But this real pride, it came from actually doing the work, making mistakes, fixing them, and physically bringing something into existence. It was a deep, quiet satisfaction that applause could just never replicate. And that quiet effort, it really began to compound. When his neighbor eventually saw the chair and praised it, Simon just smiled quietly. He didn't brag. He just said he'd been working on it. And by the time word spread, Simon was actually already on to his next secret project. In weeks, it was the wooden chair. In months, working in total silence, he finished a small table, then a shelf, then a stool. Over the years, Simon became known throughout the entire village as a highly skilled craftsman. His actions finally spoke far louder than his words ever could. So what's the big takeaway for us here from Simon's journey? First off, speaking gives away your power. When you talk about your plans, you are quite literally leaking the motivational energy you need to execute them. Second, others' early reactions replace your own effort, tricking your brain into a state of false completion. So the strategy going forward is super clear. Keep your dreams close and quiet. Protect them like that seed in the dark soil. And finally, let your work speak for itself, but only when it is absolutely ready. I really want to leave you with this one final, powerful thought. The world does not need to know what you are building. It only needs to see what you have built. So the very next time you feel that sudden, burning urge to tell everyone about your next big idea, just pause. Keep it to yourself. Let the seed grow in the darkness of your own focused effort. Just imagine, what incredible things could you achieve if you finally decided to work in silence? Thanks so much for joining me on this explainer, and I challenge you to keep your next big goal a total secret.